Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're joining me in the dance tonight. I like that.
Yes, indeed. I
That is
got you.
great. I am so glad to be back here, and I want to thank all the great people from Puerto Rico and EC3 for being in
Yes.
here when I was on assignment.
Yes, indeed. Great fill-ins. Three people who I dearly love and appreciate. My three friends and three people who are great fill-ins, but none better
Oh,
than the legendary Hall of Famer,
thank you. Thank you.
Bill Apter.
Well, yes, I want to thank you for saying that. And I got Kurt Angle and I got our International Professional Wrestling Hall of
Yes.
Fame plaques and rings this past Wednesday at the museum in Albany, New York. There's
Yes.
people in the UK and Australia say Albany, New York.
Albany. Very nice.
Albany,
Look
New York.
at that beauty. Look at that beauty.
And yeah,
Yes.
this really is, and I just want to thank everybody for. I've literally got thousands of Facebook and Twitter X and Instagram congratulations, and I really appreciate it from
Yes.
all of
Well
you.
deserved, Bill
From
Apter.
all of
Well
you.
deserved. Well deserved.
Chris, I figured I was going to start off with something here controversial. I was in this room where I am. We have a lot of the stuff from when our kids grew up.
Yeah.
And I just 5 minutes before we went on the air, I reached up and said, I never showed anyone this. It was in the magazines
Yep.
way back some years ago.
Mhm.
This guy,
Brother.
holding a picture of my then infant daughter, Haley.
Love it.
Yeah, it was Hulk Hogan
Mhm.
holding the picture up
Yes.
there. And
Yes,
this
indeed.
was, at the height of his popularity,
Mhm.
too. And the reason I'm emphasizing that it was Hulk Hogan is because I have run a gambit of emotions over what happened with Hulk Hogan
Yeah.
on Netflix. People are asking me, what do I think?
Mhm.
And I finally put it into perspective where when I saw what happened, I was texting on Facebook with our content editor,
Mhm.
the boss, Reju, and I said, are they booing him? Because I thought maybe I was hearing wrong. And he confirmed that they were
Mhm.
booing Hulk Hogan.
Yep.
And that bothered me. And
Mm.
I'm going to tell you why. It was Hogan and another guy who's in a lot of trouble, and Vince McMahon, that changed the face of the wrestling business
Mhm.
completely. So to see Hogan come out with this guy behind him that they never mentioned
Yep.
with the flag, Jimmy
Mhm.
Hart, I don't
Jimmy
know why
Hart.
they never mentioned him, being booed kind of made me, it upset me because they were booing someone who the whole wrestling business wouldn't be what it is today without him. All right. And then I thought that it's insulting to me.
Mhm.
The next morning, when friends and I were talking about it, my feeling was they were booing Hogan, but I think what they were meaning to do, I think, was boo Terry Bollea, the guy that portrays Hulk Hogan, because
Mhm.
they're two different people. Whether one considers Hogan a racist or not a racist, whether one considers Hogan, um, no, let me go back to say, when one considers Terry Bollea a racist, a non-racist, a bad guy, a good guy, whatever, that wasn't that guy that came out there
Mhm.
that night, in my opinion, on Netflix. The guy that came out there was the legend Hulk Hogan. And I think they're still looking at it that way because they're still using his promos to promote Saturday night's main event
Yep.
and and other things. And they're not canceling him off because again, this is Hulk Hogan. Again, people may hate Terry Bollea, and they have every right to if they feel he's a racist or whatever, and for things he's done and not gone ahead and apologized to, or done what Mark Henry suggested he do, and go to black colleges, and that's the other guy. It's
Mhm.
this guy, the real American, that it really bothered me that happened. So I didn't get to say that last week because I was away. So I watched the show, which I enjoyed, your show, unscripted, and yeah, I wanted to spit that out.
I appreciate that,
What
man.
do you think? What do you think
Um,
about my separation policy?
I think that's a fair assessment. I think it's so I had one of the most cathartic conversations that I've
Good
ever
word.
had. Thank you.
Yeah.
On Pancakes and Power Slams about this situation last week, and I talked about the psychology behind cancel culture. And a lot of people say, "Well, Hulk Hogan's not getting canceled," and he is. He's definitely is. I mean, a lot of people are saying he's not getting canceled because he's a racist and so forth. I went in great length in Pancakes and Power Slams, and go check that out for anyone who hasn't, about Hulk Hogan and
Sure.
just
Sure.
how it was a very civil conversation, a civil discussion. Very, it was like a group therapy session that I had with my followers on the show, live on the show, and I was able to discuss and bring pros and cons of both sides of the bridge. I mean, I don't think it's worth. I'll say this personally as a black male. I think that forgiveness is just the right thing to do. I
Hmm.
do think that it
Sure.
doesn't justify at all any actions, any just deplorable decision making,
Hmm.
uh, and that was just a couple of times that we saw within the past 20 years of documentation. I imagine it happened many more times than that. I mean, that was a secret tape. But here's my thing. I think that society in general, if there's a magnifying glass on what each and every one of us have said or done or portrayed in dark secret spots in our lives, there's none of us that would be able to be any type of moral police and say that this is
Right.
bad compared to what I've done. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
I do
Sure.
think that, again, doesn't justify it whatsoever, but at the same time, I do think that we all should be on an equal plane of expectation for forgiveness. I do think that there is a sense of change that we want to see. I explain I explained this on PNP last week. Hey, look, there's a lot of us who want Hogan back to the cookout, right? But
Yeah.
at the
Sure.
same
Of course.
time, what we
I
want
like
to.
how you put that back.
Thank
Back at
you, thank
the
you.
cookout. Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of us who want him back, but at the same time, there's a lot of us who are very hesitant to bring him back to the cookout, and I think rightfully so. but I do think that everybody deserves a chance to come back to the cookout.
I do
So,
too.
yeah,
Now,
that's where I'm at right
now
now.
one of the pieces
In
that
very short, in a very short
oh
explanation.
yeah, yeah, one of the pieces that we were talking about on Time Machine with Teddy Long and Mad Mac Davis. One day I want to find out what he's mad about. But we were talking about the way the wrestling
I caught
business.
that. I caught that, by the way.
Thank you.
Well done. Well done. Yeah.
We were talking about the old school when Teddy Long was there, and even before Teddy Long was in the business. When I was in the business, there was this aura of you could say anything to anybody in the dressing rooms because everybody took it non-offensively. 9 out of 10 people.
Mm.
People would make a joke about my religion, or somebody would make a Polish joke or something. And back then, it was like it was the good old boys club. It didn't have the connotation that so much of everything you say now is taken as an insult. If it's
Mhm.
anything about race, creed, religion, anything like that,
Yeah.
it's taken as an insult now. And I also brought up, the days of All in the Family, the
Yeah.
Jeffersons. There's
Yeah.
a way to enjoy people's cultures in a humorous way as well.
Yeah.
It really is. But it's just gone so far with the Hogan thing. And I talked to people who are around him, and it seems that the day after and right after that Netflix thing, his beer orders took off immensely, and he made like more money out of that
Mm.
appearance where he got booed than he had made on in a week or 2 weeks
Mhm.
on the beer. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if that's a relationship that, uh, personally, some people from different cultures or different religions or whatever, if that's something that if two people want to personally have that conversation or personally have that relationship, I'm not a big fan of it. I do think that there's a boundary of respect that should be administered across the board.
absolutely.
But if two people want to have that relationship where they just kind of throw out, whatever, that's between them. I don't think that that is something that should be just kind of a template for anybody saying anything. This was a secretive tape that he
Yeah.
said to, I mean, to other people who were his friends who were non-black. So I do think that there is a differentiation there. Again, man, I think that if Hulk Hogan should really spend time with apologizing. I think he should apologize for what he did. I think one of the biggest issues that um, the African American or the black community has is they don't feel like over the past 10 years that this has been a public thing, the 10 plus years this has been a public thing. And a lot of the black community don't feel like there's been um, a fair enough or a sincere apology.
Yeah.
A lot of the interviews that we saw from Hogan in the beginning was, you know, I didn't notice like when I grew up, that wasn't something that I was aware of. I mean,
Oh yeah,
I,
yeah. Well, he was talking about at that point, when he was growing up in Tampa,
yeah,
in the streets with your friends, you called everybody,
yeah,
bro, or
certain
unfortunately
things.
sometimes the N word, even if they were Caucasian. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
also look at this as um, in contrast with the Mel Gibson Jewish community
mm,
there, where Mel Gibson said something anti-Semitic, but he did go um, kind of out of his way. A lot of people still hold it against him to make retribution by
we
going
did.
and
Yes.
talking in various temples and stuff.
Yeah,
And I think that Terry Bollea is capable of doing that, but I don't think it's on his radar. I think, on his radar right now is getting out there and promoting whatever he's promoting, brother.
yes.
Uh,
I agree with that, and I think
yeah,
that's the reason why he'll continue to be blacklisted. to so many people. I think that because it's not on his radar, is something that really hits the hearts and souls of so many people who considered him their hero for so long.
But
And I
he
do
hasn't
think,
been hurt by it at all, though, financially or anything.
say that again.
He hasn't been hurt by his comments.
His merch has dropped significantly in WWE shop.
Well, you're right, a WWE shop, but he's making
Yeah.
up for it with the beer.
We'll see. I mean, we don't have public numbers with that. Public numbers are. I mean, WWE usually show their rankings of things. We don't know that from a year to year perspective. We'll see. Maybe it did peak, and maybe it'll drop because of all this. We'll see. I do think. I mean, you said something important there. I mean, I think the very fact that it's not on his radar is the reason why a lot of people are canceling him because of that. I do think it is important for Hulk Hogan to spend the time. And here's the thing. It's something I also talked about PNP. Again, I talked about this at length on PNP last week, so check it out. But I also said this too. I said, what I still, and I've posed this question, and I talked about this at length on my show. I don't understand, and I really want to know this. I don't understand why the pro wrestling community forgives some other wrestler names, who has been told, who has been revealed to say things, to say the N word, privately, very prominent Hall of Famers, WWE Hall of Famers. I can think of two right now from the top of my head, but people know, and they're forgiven, but then Hogan's not forgiven. I don't understand what's the difference there. And to your differentiation between Hulk Hogan and Terry Bollea, I will say that I think people would say that the problem that we've seen for so long is even Hogan doesn't differentiates himself from Hulk Hogan and Terry Bollea.
Sure.
So
sure. Yeah. There's another piece about this here is that how can I explain this? That Hogan, it's not on his radar because the people that are promoting what he's doing are still promoting it. If they said, hey, listen, we can't do this because you have upset people in the Black community, maybe it would be different. But keep in mind now that there are people in that crowd. What did they draw? 17,000 people at that first show. There are young people in that crowd that just went along with the booing, and they didn't know what was. Not everybody knows this. People that follow this on the internet, but you've got a 13, 14-year-old kid there who might have heard of Hulk Hogan, and people are booing him, and he doesn't understand why people are doing this. I'm sure there was a large part of the crowd that was booing along because everybody else was booing. They didn't know why. Yeah. What portion of that crowd?
That's called swarm theory.
Yes, What portion of that crowd do you think booed him because of his Madison Square Garden ripped the shirt off Donald Trump situation?
I think it was a compilation of the two. I think it was I think it wasn't that alone, because I mean, you've had, The Undertaker has been a very vocal, Trump supporter. Triple H has been a very vocal, Trump supporter as far as just the UFC matchup, them hanging out, having a good time together.
But none of them went to that rally. None of them did, went out there and just said they may have been with Trump.
So there are more quiet.
None of them ever went out like Hogan.
There were more quiet Trump supporters than outspoken. Yes. They didn't speak at the RNC, so they were outspoken. I mean, they were public about their support or their endorsement, but they didn't speak at the RNC. You know what I mean? So that was a difference. I do think it was a compilation of the two. I don't think it was Hogan alone, but at the same time, the loudest voice gets the biggest criticism
Yes,
oftentimes, right?
absolutely.
So and I do think that with Hogan, even though he endorsed just like Taker, just like I mean, just like Vince,
Yeah,
just like a lot
yeah,
of other people who are very, just like a lot of wrestlers, he was very. I mean, Kane, I mean, he endorsed Trump. So there's a lot of people who were very public in their endorsements, but at the same time, they didn't speak at the
right.
RNC.
They
They
didn't
didn't do
go
the
over the
gimmick.
top.
Yeah,
What Hogan
yeah.
did was over the top at a place that he
Over the
headlined
top
in New
to
York.
liberals,
Yeah,
not over the top to
but
conservatives. Yeah,
a place where he's headlined most of his career at Madison Square Garden,
yeah,
where all the Hulkamaniacs used to go, of course.
sure.
But I think a portion of that crowd, the reason they didn't boo The Undertaker for that is because when you think of The Undertaker, you don't think of his political views
Right,
whatsoever.
right.
Hogan made you think of his political views because he's been so public at the
Yes.
RNC convention. So,
Yeah.
okay, well, I
Agreed.
wanted to get,
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't even if Hogan was did that and only did that, I don't think the boost would be as resounding as that combined with the racial, tension that's
mhm,
going on with
sure,
Hogan in the black culture.
sure.
We got a couple super chats about that too.
Oh, that's
We
right.
got Roland $5. The
Hey,
fact
Roland,
merch has fallen from number 1 to number 15 over the years affects Terry Bollea, who campaigned for Trump. Wasn't it both Hogan and Bollea? What do you think about that? What do you
yeah,
think?
well, it was Bolea, of course, and he was in the persona of Hulk Hogan, so you got to blame them both.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
both are.
yeah.
Roland disagreed with something one of us said. If you watch black wrestling YouTubers since January 6th, I think that Dr. Chris and the minority of people who want Hogan back at the cookout. I mean, here's the thing: black wrestling YouTubers is also the minority. I
Mhm.
mean, people who have the voice with that. I do think at the end of the day, a lot of times people are criticizing the way that they're criticizing because they're hurt.
Right.
What I mean? Because there is a sense of hurt, there's a sense of disappointment, and uh, there's a sense of reconciliation that just comes oftentimes with disappointment because you want those type of soothing resolutions, and just being mad at something is usually just being mad and hurt and vitriolic about something or someone who you had such an affinity for at first. It's a really unhealthy way to continue to live and think about things. Just
Yeah.
psychologically, it's just not healthy. And then a lot of time, but though, because we live in such a culture that not only does that, but oftentimes co-signs that and continues to fuel and put oxygen to that flame, it's really easy for content creators to draw people with that type of negativity.
Oh,
But at
yeah.
the same time, if I sat with them at my chair, my therapy chair, and they were sitting across from me on the couch, I'm sure that most of them would say, "Man, why did he do this to us?" And the very fact that they would say that means that they were disappointed by something he did, and they'll be willing to resolve and make good or make
Yeah.
peace with Hogan. So that's my
Yeah.
take.
If this wonderful thing called the internet did not exist, none of us would have known about that audio
Yeah.
tape,
Yeah,
probably.
and I'm glad that we did. Honestly, I mean, I
Yeah.
do think it's important for us to know about it, because we don't want to be blinded and ignorant toward the situation. But I mean, again, this is a lesson learned for everybody, hopefully. So, Rollins said $2. Oh, OMG, sorry guys, but this isn't about the N word. I mean, I do think it. I personally think it's a compilation of the two.
It's about the T word, Trump.
It's
I,
about
I just I just
the N
coined
word
that.
and the T word.
I just
There you
coined
go.
that. I just coined
Des
that.
in the building, 499. Hulk should address it and make more of an effort to correct and clean up his mess. His silence looks ignorant. I'm still hurt. He was my child. See, exactly. See,
Yeah. Now,
right
Dad,
here,
you know about
exactly
it.
what I'm talking about.
You
Yeah,
know about it.
yeah.
But I'm also looking at possibly a minority of fans who don't know what this is all about. How long ago was this now?
I think
When
that I think the incident happened in 2005, if I'm not
Yeah, and it's died down a bit, but when you see something like this, what happened on Netflix, it brings it back into the news.
It depends on who you're talking to, though. I
Yeah,
mean, like
everybody spit
it
it
died
up
down
again.
to it died down to who? I mean, that's the thing. Like, has it died down to the black community? You can't speak for the black community, so you wouldn't know that. So I do think that if it died down, who did it die down to? And I will
For sure.
say, for the black community, I think that if even if Hogan himself is thinking in my head, okay, this has died down. I think that is counterproductive to so many people in the black community that wants to make good with Hogan, but is disappointed in the fact that he wants it all to die down without him manning up and owning it. And I think that
Okay.
that's
I'm,
important
I'm
for
going
him.
to give you a rule from the wrestlers to the magazines.
Okay.
No matter what it was, can we do this story? Put me in the magazine. I don't care if it's good or bad, but just spell my name right. This is the same thing.
How so?
Where since he's not fighting what went on, make sure you spell my name right. Make sure you get it out there. Because
Hmm.
the more his name is out there, people, and whether even if it's negative, people are still going to have him in their mind. And if they see a product with him on that, it still might draw them to purchase something with him on it. It's a
I
possibility.
doubt, again, man. Speaking from the black community, I don't think
Okay,
so.
okay. Well,
I don't think so. Yeah,
I
because
totally.
we've already seen declines in merch for him. I do think that again, it's just one of those things from speaking from the black culture. It's just something that we've seen it. I've talked to black wrestlers about this, and it's really a general consensus that the black culture is saying to Hogan, "You owe us an apology."
Oh, Mark
So
Henry especially. I mean,
yeah,
he's
yeah,
very, very.
rightfully so.
Do you
Yeah.
notice when you see the rallies where he's going to selling the beer, the personal appearances,
Mhm.
that it's mainly a Caucasian crowd? Because
Yep.
I've looked,
Yep.
I've
Yep.
looked.
Absolutely.
So
Good
I would
observation.
love him to come out exclusively somewhere and just say, we all make mistakes. I
Yes.
apologize if I came
Yes.
across. And he does bring up about the
Kill
way
the
he,
gimmick though. Kill the Hulk Hogan gimmick. Don't give me
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah, be
tongue
Terry Bollea.
twister stuff. Be Terry Bollea. Say it. As a PR guy, I would absolutely 100% endorse that. And I would say no gimmicks. I'm not Hulk Hogan for a second. I'm laying that aside. I'm speaking to you as Terry Bollea. You know what I mean? So that would be my
Yeah,
suggestion.
yeah. And also, he does talk about growing up, which I mentioned before in Tampa, and the street language that went on there. So
Mhm.
part of this, even if it's a small percentage, I do agree that part of this did come from the where he grew up. It
Hmm.
really did. And sometimes people can't shake that. It's a normal thing for them. But
Yeah, I mean, he's what, 73 now, 70,
somewhere
71,
around
somewhere in
there.
there. Yeah, 71, 73, somewhere. Um, this happened when he was in his early 50s, I believe. So, I mean, at this point, you know, uh, even if that could be true, I mean, it's hard for me to believe that, but even if it could be true, someone who's now in his early 50s at that point, this was 20
Mhm.
years ago, someone who's now in his early 50s should be well aware of
Oh,
that word being offensive, especially since he understood and grew up in the times of at least had a knowledge of segregation. He knew all about Martin Luther King. He knew
yes,
all
he
about
did.
Malcolm X. He knew all about the culture divide in the 60s and preceding, and so he's aware. I mean, someone who was born in what was he born in the 50s? Was it he was
Mm,
born in the 50s, wasn't he? Yeah, 52 or 3 or something like that. Yeah, so he's aware of that, and so he's born in 1953. Yeah, So 71 years old. He'll be 72 this year. You know, he's aware. So again, I wouldn't, if I was his PR guy 20 years ago, I would have said, Terry, don't do that. Don't minimize this outcry from a whole culture.
Remember,
I don't, and say I didn't notice it when I grew up.
But remember that a lot of times, and Vince McMahon used to talk about this too, is that when you tell Hogan not to do something sometimes, and he goes on a talk show, he says things that people afterwards were like, "Why did you say that?"
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Arsenio Hall show.
Yes.
It's a perfect example of that. So yeah, I just hope somewhere, sometime, he's invited to the cookout with.
Yes.
With
Come on, Bill Apter. You know who's invited to the cookout?
Who? Oh, thank you. I get to go to the cookout. Yes, I love it.
Absolutely. Come on.
I love it.
Rollin, $10.
Yes, Rollin. Thank you, Rollin.
Yes, indeed. And you guys would never guess that I was once the biggest Hogan fan in history. As a child, I literally cried when Andre choked this man out. Feared for his life, so that audio from 2015 crushed me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and again, that falls right into what I was saying.
Maniacs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Falls right into what I was saying.
But I'm going to end this part of our show by saying once again, with all the stuff he's got going on with the beer and other things, I just don't think this is major on his radar. I really don't. Mm-hmm. And WWE having him doing commercials for Saturday night's main event and things like this means it's just be Hulk Hogan. That's what they want.
Yeah. Yep. And yes, but again, I do think it's important to be culturally sensitive.
Sure, of course.
With what the outcry is. So I'm wondering what the year was. I know the 2015 caused a firestorm. 2006. Okay, 2006 is when the issue happened with the tape. So it was about almost 20 years ago. So I mean, it's been a while. It was and then someone saying 2012 too. I know that he was talking to Nick Hogan about something too.
Yes, I remember that
God,
too.
God, if he was black, and then threw God in there. So I mean, it's been there's been more than one instance, unfortunately. Yeah. So again, like I said before last week, personally, I'm willing, as a Christian man, as a therapist, I'm willing to have a conversation with Hulk Hogan about coming back to.
Let's see if we can get him on the show. I want to change.
We got like two minutes, so we talked about 35 minutes.
The Penta.
Let's do it.
The Penta match on Raw on Netflix, and people. I'm telling this to, and they're going like, "Come on!" I think Chad Gable was fabulous in that match.
Yep.
I thought he was great. Absolutely displayed perfect stuff. He got Penta over, but I think Penta worked from underneath from so much of that match. I wanted to see Penta against a job guy. I wanted to see him in a squash match. Mm-hmm. Here he was looking like he was injured like 3 minutes into the match. Mm-hmm. They're really playing out that leg injury. Mm-hmm. And he was thrown over the ropes, and he just it wasn't the same Penta, the same guy, but that I saw just destroying people in AEW. They had him, working on top each time in AEW. Mm-hmm. But I hope the next time we see him, it's in a match against someone that he can, not a 50-50 match, a 75-25 match with Penta in charge. Did you have the same feeling?
I 100% did.
Thank you. People are telling me I'm crazy. Yeah. Some of the other sheets, and oh my God, it was the greatest thing that ever happened. It's like, no, it was good.
I 100% agree with you, Bill. I talked about it on the show yesterday. I wasn't a fan, and I like Penta. I like Penta a
Me
lot. I
too.
think I
Me too.
love his mystique. I love his character. He has an allure
And his
to him.
outfit,
I'm
he
a
gets a
fan.
Penta.
Yeah. I like his overall presentation. Been a big supporter of his presentation since Lucha Undergrounds when I started to
Me
really know
too.
more about him. And I liked them. I mean, throughout Lucha, throughout TNA, throughout AEW, I just I just wasn't a fan of the debut. I just
Me
wasn't.
neither.
I think he worked from underneath way too much
Thank you. Thank
against Chad Gable,
two of
who
us.
is an amazing in-ring performer. However, this is the same Chad Gable who is as 50-50 as 50-50 can come. And so if you're working from underneath too much against Chad Gable as far as how they present Chad Gable, it doesn't make Penta look strong because
Correct.
he's going back and forth and 50-50 in the match against someone who doesn't have an impressive win-loss record. And so I think what you do is you have him win pretty convincing matches. And then if you want to do a Chad Gable further down the line, what you do is you have Chad Gable start to rack up some matches. And then that's when you do that. And I think,
Absolutely.
that's the psychological way to make Penta look stronger than how he was presented.
Yeah, I wanted to see like Pete Sanchez against Buddy Rogers.
Hmm.
Buddy Rogers destroys him the whole match.
There you
That's it.
go.
That
There you
type
go.
of thing.
Very nice.
One other thing before we go.
Okay.
Royal Rumble. I think the last two guys in there, and I don't know how it's going to play out. There's so much great talent in there already. I think the last two guys are going to be Roman and John Cena. But I think two other people that are going to declare are JBL, because he's coming on to Raw next week
Mm.
and he's ready to wrestle
Mm.
again. He's been working out. I think he's going to declare. He's going to be one of the legends. And I think our buddy Booker T, after beating Zilla Fatu, I think that was his warm up to see if he's going to get into the Rumble. I think those two guys, they're going to come out as legends. They're not going to win,
There
but
you
it's
go.
going to be a hell of a good time seeing both of them.
All right. There you go.
Wonderful Willie Padilla.
Predictions from Bill Apter. All right.
Yes, sir.
We got to go, but let's do this real quick. Rolling $5. Dr. Chris, Mr. Apter. How can Hulk, spelled with three Ks and
Hulk.
spelled with three Ks on purpose. If you get
I just got that.
Hogan apologized for I didn't endorse that, by the way, but apologized for teaching his son that being reincarnated as a black person is a curse and punishment from God. How can he apologize? You just say, "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
Again, man. I'm not with that. I'm not.
I don't know what I was thinking. Is all he has to say. I was wrong, and
I was wrong. Just man up about it. I mean, this was over a dozen years ago. Who knows? If he's changed from. I mean, just this period. I'm just talking about people in general. We just can't afford. If someone is genuine, personally, I'm just going to say this: if someone is genuinely and sincerely apologetic about decisions that they've made, I think it's just better for society, humanity, to forgive them. Forgiveness does not mean approval. It does not mean accept. It doesn't mean from a standpoint of forget. We're going to forget. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that I'm not going to allow you to live in my head rent free for something that you did toward me or my culture or my family or whoever it is. And I do think that none of us is off the hook, man, from being forgiven from things that we've done before.
Say I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Say I'm sorry, and then let people make their own decisions whether they want to forgive him or not.
Yep, yes, indeed. All right, Bill Apter.
Good to be back, Dr. Chris. I missed you.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, this guy right here is Bill Apter.
Thank you. Apter, my Samoan name, Apter.
There you go. I am Dr. Chris. This is unscripted. Have a good night, everybody.
see you at the matches, and this was the extended version.
That's right. So long.